tonight. There's no action to be taken. Ask for a motion to adjourn the special call meeting.
Motion adjourned.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. We'll roll into our committee meeting. First up tonight is Boggs Mountain, module 232.
So this is from the motion that I made.
That is correct.
All right.
Do you want to steer? Do you want?
I'd like to just kind of pitch what I grew up out there. You know, I mean, I guess trespassing out there. Never got a trespass notice. I mean, it's incredible, really. And had the opportunity to go to Fruit Mountain, and you look across through there, and it has an equally devastatingly wonderful view of the entire escarpment all the way down into downtown. And we used it as an off-road, recreation area, camping facility, and ad hoc party stop. And so it seems to me that one of the best parts about the settlement with MRR, other than we're not going to have coal ash, was the opportunity to have to look at a recreation facility in the middle of the county, not in the outskirts or the periphery, but dead in the middle. And with the population growth pretty much centered around that as an epicenter, it seems like something that we should look at. It's certainly not something we do today, and it's probably not something we want to do by ourselves. But my initial thought was to establish a committee to look at public-private partnerships and the types of proposals those types of folks would make. Because it's between the rock quarry and the Economic Development Center, proximity to lots of different stuff, but really in the middle of nowhere. And, it's raw properties. So, some folks might have great ideas. I'll just tell you this, my daughter's a barrel racer. Yellowstone gives those folks a lot of bad press, I can tell you, but we don't have an equestrian center that's, a public equestrian center like most counties in our state do. We don't have a facility where you could go and have outdoor recreation other than when you go to the state parks. And we're kind of limited in what we're offering in regards to mountain biking, hiking. The view would make an incredible location for a county event location. And can you imagine a concert up there with that view? Can you imagine just a venue of any kind up there? And there are so many different ways to do it that I'm not aware of. I'd like to have start the conversation, because it's an incredibly positive element of settlement with MRR. And then I think we should probably look at how we can take advantage of it going forward. But I don't want to be the one that does it. And I think there are other people out there that know how to do this kind of stuff.
I will tell you, Dr. Wilson, that I went back and looked and seen this on the agenda, and from the MRR resolution, we have an obligation to purchase some property, which is 93 acres, but we acquired for $1 at the time 158.39 acres. So what you're talking about is over 150 acres, which you're calling Boggs Mountain. It's 150 acres that has a peak in the center of the county.
Right. At Fruit Mountain, they knocked 40 feet off the top of it to make a flat area to create an incredible space. Some of the things that I've just heard secondhand about are just stunning, because I just thought that was a giant mound of kudzu, right? It's incredible what they're doing there. And and that's for profit, it's for limited access, it's for et cetera, but we own this place. And the opportunity to do something, it just seems apparent to me. And if you take $750,000 spent arguing with MRR just so they wouldn't do something that they didn't tell us they were going to do until after they started doing it, and you pivot that to the opportunity for folks in Pickens County to have a world-class outdoor recreation facility in the middle of it, and I'm just out of the gate, taking care of people, right? That's our focus. How do we go wrong? So 158 acres is a ton of land. Right? It's quarter of a square mile. Yeah, wonderful.
From the staff's perspective, I don't know if y'all put any thought much into.
There is some history with that. If you go back to about 2014, 2015, there was some staff work. I just was aware at the time in another role that we were applying for a grant to build a small, not a whole area, but a small park out there. And then I think that lost momentum just through the changeover of personnel. From the county staff standpoint, we look, you see, and I may stand up. Dr. Wilson, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, this GIS data that's available on the website, you'll see all the flat land down here. This is what was graded for the Commerce Park. So, you know, here you're looking at reliable sprinkler. This is
It's right behind them.
St. Jude's down here. That's a water tower. But so you've got the Commerce Park that's just below it. This is the mountaintop right here. But the Commerce Park down here. This is the MRR property. You can see it's the big ravine where they are. Up here is 93, and this is King Asphalt, and then the rock quarry is over here. Our landfill is up this way. But so from a staff standpoint, we have always looked at this as kind of a heavy industrial area. This is not suitable for an industrial use, clearly, because I think we've got some geo work from years gone by that there's a reason this wasn't part of the Commerce Park going way back.
It's probably all granted.
Well, that's what actually Steve Raines was in the private world at the time, working for the engineering firm that did some of the work on the Commerce Park. And he said, you go down 10 feet, it's rock everywhere there. So that's part of the reason the very edges of the Commerce Park aren't used, is that very reason. As Ray Farley says, the juice ain't worth the squeezing when you get to some of those ports. So anyway, from a staff standpoint, we've looked at it. We do think that it might be, if the county already owns it, it could be portions really could be success stories as some kind of park, as some kind of conserved green space in the middle of all this industrial use. So we would really just like to learn more about y'all's vision and see what we can do to help come up with some type of plan.
I'd like to just give you just one idea, right? This is not a pivoting idea or whatnot. Near where the University of Florida is, there was some large undeveloped land it's been developed since. But they had probably 500 acres, and they had crisscrossing about 26 to 30 miles of trails that are just a big web. And so every Tuesday they would go out and they would swap caution tape and they would put up some arrows and whatnot. And so every week you could go out there and you could mountain bike a different trail. I mean, it was the most low dollar thing you've ever seen. The people, you had to join a club, right, to be part of it. So you had to agree that you'd come out there and volunteer, et cetera, and help do with the trails. I mean, it was just raw land with crisscrossing. And again, they've since built a subdivision on it. But it was just an absolute cash cow that paid for all sorts of other amenities and things out there, right? And so you take nothing but rock. It's already rugged. It's already been, what they call it, de-treed. What is it? Whatever the heck that word is for. But there's all sorts of things that could happen out there in a benign fashion that would change what the land actually constitutes, and we could still do something in the future. It's just partnerships, and then you eliminate some risk if you make there's an ag tourism element that eliminates a lot of liability type risks, and then insulate yourself by contracting to other folks to do the operation element of it. I mean, there's so many things that could be done that we wouldn't have to be locked into that could just help kind of open the doors to other aspects of it, right? So 158 acres is a pile of land, and Ezequina is one of the best mountain biking areas around. And then you got to go over to Greenville, and then you got to go up to Western North Carolina. Dead in the center of the county, you can have something that would be a shining star that would bring people here. You want to talk about tax money opportunities? It could be huge. It's one of the things I think that you guys found out was that folks that ride bicycles spend money about as fervently as people that have boats, right? I mean, they're almost always well-heeled folks, white collar, et cetera. You don't see a whole lot of guys getting back from their brick mason job to go ride a mountain bike on a Thursday, right? But you certainly see other folks do that. Could be, I mean, take that, expand it to motorized vehicle, right? Because it's certainly been used for that in the past, and it almost has all the setbacks that we're looking for, so you don't disturb folks. If you start doing that stuff, you'll have people come here from all across the country for tourism things and probably leave, unlike most folks do when they come to the lakes, right? So just think big picture, and how do we get somebody to do a study to tell us like some things that would be economically viable without a huge investment from the county.
Vice Chairman Custer.
So, I mean, I have been to the top of Fruit Mountain, and I too am amazed at the views. And I did see what you're talking about, that I was surprised that, I really was surprised that driving down 93, you don't see that there's a mountain there, but it's a big mountain. You can see all the way to Greenville, Simpsonville. So are you talking about forming a committee here to just kind of study what might it be? Or are you talking about working towards public-private partnerships?
What I'm thinking is the same kind of thing that you would do. I'm thinking of a committee that would look at all the options, public, private, right? get proposals maybe from folks that do PRTM type planning, you know, at a county level scale. There's a whole university over there, right? In the industrial world, I used to host senior design projects for engineers, so I could get a lot of ideas that weren't hinging around prior experience, you know? So, I mean, I think that this is the kind of thing that we could do some really incredible stuff with the resources we have in the county to get great ideas about what we could do without spending a bunch of cash, right? And we got all kinds of time. The land's not going anywhere. You know, we already got it. So if it took us a year or two to kind of come up with some ideas that we started communicating to the community, shouldn't be a big issue. We have the ATAX folks that are doing, like, you know, funding. Well, this is principal project to do something like that. Maybe Kim goes back and kind of comes up with a group that he might propose, or the staff says, hey, these are the kind of people you should get involved. You look at the people that wrote the Pickens County 2020 vision or whatever it was. I mean, there's some great folks, you know. I mean, it was a nice political mix of people. So for me, before we start talking public-private, where somebody comes in and starts talking bulldozing, let's see what the public would like to have if it's a clean whiteboard.
It's interesting you're bringing this up in this way. I have an email that I sent to staff like 2 weeks ago saying, hey, I have a constituent talking to me about wanting to build a park and where to go with it. That is very much related to this conversation. There is some land that's, if any of y'all have been behind Southern Wesleyan, there's a bunch of bike trails there. That's one of the new areas, and there's a bunch of trails. And then behind that, there is some land that seems to be some weird no man's land, and the county might use it as a landfill, but city might use it as a lay down yard. There's like, he's taking me on a tour, this constituent. I don't know, his name's Kurt Edsall. He runs NECA. We talked about the idea of, I know we're not hiring anybody on staff this year, but the idea of a trails coordinator for the county, which just to fully map and GIS and build up on trails, because to your point about money, there's a Upstate Greenways and Trails Alliance, there's NECA, there's a whole bunch of different groups that fund and support biking, if that's what you want to do. So I think if you're talking about the conversation, there's a whole bunch of ways you can approach it, and there's a lot of people in the PRTM world, both professionally on our staff and through the universities, that can help with this. I would just like, it's cool that we already own this and it's in the middle of the county, but also if you go back to our density and development maps, where people are moving in is Clemson and Easley. Like that's where we just decided to put everybody. So I would also like to, and we don't have a lot of county parks in the southern part of the county, so I'd also like to consider this land that a constituent approached me about that I'm researching now on it's county land right now, but I think it's like either county or Clemson. There was a little confusion over it.
So I have a question for you.
You know what I'm talking about? It's City of Clemson, but like City of Clemson has not like laid claim to it or something. Yeah. So I guess my point is, I love this idea. I almost feel like this could be a committee of talking about the future of parks in the area. Where does biking go in? Where do we need parks most in terms of where people are and where they want to go? You mentioned horses, but we also have Garrison Arena, which is a major economic push for the area. So like, to me, I guess what I'm calling for is maybe not make this as one decision, but make this as part of a larger plan that is county parks and where we want to develop. And is it biking next? Is it kayaking next? Is it horses next?
You said task force for a child care thing, right?
Yeah.
So this is a task force?
I would think the parks task force makes sense in terms of, you've been approached by this, I've been approached by this, that's two of us.
I think there's a special irony in the idea of having the fattest guy working the whole county to be the task force guy for recreational activities. I mean, that's...
You filled up, you're outside.
Yeah, true.
So
okay.
I know that y'all done a lot of work. PRT's done a lot of work, continue to do a lot of work. You have a master plan. I know your master plan is bigger than anything you've ever shown us, because I know you. I know you well enough to know that we've just barely tipped the iceberg. Where does something like this fit in the grander plan of the PRT department? And if we wanted to go down this path of a task force or looking at options and those kinds of things, how does that fit into your grander plan?
We would love the opportunity to work with like Clemson PRTM professionals. We did some work with them after the branding and marketing plan came out, which I feel like we've accomplished a lot of the things on that. So to take a second step and look 10 years out, 15 years out, we would welcome that opportunity, because we're right now focused on making improvements to our existing parks, and I think we're right on the cusp of what comes after that.
So that's, and Mr. Chairman, I would say that's an interesting point that she raises. It's kind of like you pull up with your family at the drive-through window to order breakfast at McDonald's, and the kids start arguing about what's for supper. You know, the instinct is to say, no, we're not ready to talk about that. You know, because we're worried about a couple other proposals that we've talked to y'all about. But it is always a good practice to look over that horizon. So I agree with what Ms. Fowler's saying. It would be a good exercise for all of us.
I think we're often approached by citizens that have these great ideas, but it's not something that's a council vision or something that we've been tasked with or that's not budgeted for. So it's hard for us to interact about future plans. So
We could put those citizens on a task force.
Can't build Central Park unless you set aside the land.
Vice Chairman.
I think this is a unique situation in that we already own this land and that it's in the Liberty District. So I'd like to be on the committee. I'm just saying. And I got it. It may not have been a part of the original. Like I said, I never thought Fruit Mountain would have what it has on top of it, and all of a sudden it does. But since we already own it, and since we're in a unique situation, I don't see the problem with us getting a committee together to talk about it. And I love the thought of, hey, Clemson, you want to take this on as a project for free and work with us on coming up with some ideas?
You see Roy and I in biker shorts on top of that.
Stop painting pictures like that. Because that's what
that just sells itself, let's be honest.
Other discussion, other questions, other comments?
So my motion is from this, that we create an ad hoc committee, right? We invite staff and you can ask us to participate in some way to look at what the next steps would be to get this thing moving. So
I'll second that.
Discussion.
It's a good idea.
All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Nope. It is unanimous. Keep you on your toes. So it's 10 minutes, or 9 minutes to 8, and I know Mr. Chairman Costner has to drive to the low country tonight. I do want to talk about the UDSO. Local Councilwoman Linville, well, we didn't speak, we emailed. Earlier, we did speak after the last meeting, though, where we talked about UDSO and being very specific moving forward so that we stay on track. We all come prepared to argue the same topic and not so broadly. If I'm not mistaken, we have townhomes, tiny homes, RV parks, and RV dwellings, all still on the table from the last go around. I personally think that townhomes will probably be the next extremely hot topic because let's just be honest, townhomes are about all that's left that you can do. I do think that RV parks, there's some specifics, and then RVs as dwelling is also one of those conversations. I think the townhome really should be what we focus on next up, and really focus hard on townhomes, and then move forward with the other three, both RV parks and RV as dwelling, and then tiny houses, because they kind of fit within that, truthfully. Does anyone have an issue with approaching the UDSO moving forward, knocking out these items kind of in that order?
So I guess it was townhomes first, then RV parks, and RVs as dwelling second.
And then tiny homes.
Okay, sounds good.
Sure.
Vice Chairman Castro.
So you got,
Did I
you're
leave something
leaving
out? Did I leave something out?
apartments.
Oh, apartments.
Multifamily. But tiny homes aren't on here either, and that's, I was gonna ask a clarity on whether or not that was, to be clear, we didn't pass any tiny home language,
We didn't.
and that was grouped in with this, with the moratorium on multifamily. Tiny homes is part of that?
It's, no, I,
It's not, we can't permit it.
I'll say
still don't
currently
exist.
there is nothing that exists.
There is no tiny home, right?
And so to me, I think that a lot of the previous conversations we had about tiny homes, the same folks that call it a tiny home are the same folks that call an RV, there's certain standards to it that we went in that whole debate about all that. And so I think in my head, I was looping those two together. And I feel like a lot of that conversation will be redundant conversation. I may be wrong in that. That's the reason I bring it up.
What is the order?
So that was actually apartments or multifamily. You guys feel tiny homes and then apartments / multifamily?
Oh, we did the.
I'm sorry, townhomes. Townhomes and then apartments / multifamily?
Townhomes, apartments. Then tiny homes and RVs.
And then we'll go RV parks. And then RV is dwelling and then tiny home will be at the end. Yeah. And there's currently nothing allowing RV as dwelling or tiny homes.
Other than the hardship exemption.
Correct.
That's right.
Anybody have any issue with that plan moving forward?
When do we have the impact of the updated?
They are working with the sheriff's office right now. There were some emails today. I think they're waiting on 2 more documents from the sheriff's office. As soon as they have that, I'll turn it back over to
Did they
planning
ever
commission.
say why they didn't include the sheriff's office in the first place?
We think it was just a miscommunication. We didn't say to them, oh, by the way, include the sheriff's office.
Yeah, but we paid them money to tell us what to put on the impact.
Exactly. So that's why we had to go back, loop back when you all raised it.
Any other discussion this evening?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, do I have a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So do you see